Our story begins in Shinya County, at the Jung Manor, where an elf-like physician examines a newborn baby. After checking the infant's pulse, the physician lets out a breath of relief. The baby's father, Jung Dem-jung, the patriarch of the Jung Manor, anxiously asks, "How is it, physician?" The elf-like man responds solemnly, "It'll be hard for the baby to live past 20 years. That is the constitution he has." Jung Dem-jung is shocked. Is this a punishment from the heavens? Is it because he's the child who caused his mother to die in childbirth? The physician, visibly disappointed, retorts, "How could you say such a thing to a physician? How could you say such a thing about your own child? One destined to die young." The physician continues, his tone serious. This is akin to the condition known as the 9 yin-severed meridians. Never in my life have I seen someone with their Baihui acupoint opened to such an extreme. Dem-jung's brows furrow. Baihui acupoint? Are you referring to the one at the top of the head? Yes. The physician nods. If the Baihui acupoint is too open, it leads to early death. Some call it deity ascension. Deity ascension? Dem-jung asks, his tone laced with curiosity. Isn't that what powerful Taoists undergo when they ascend to the heavenly realm? The physician shakes his head. Don't believe those myths. It's when someone absorbs too much of the energy of nature, energy from the heavens and earth, and dies because their body cannot withstand it. Dem-jung, disappointed, rises from his chair and looks at the child. In a serious tone, he declares, "I see. It seems I was right. This is indeed heavenly punishment." The physician, furious, shouts, "How dare you call yourself a father?" But Dem-jung remains indifferent. "You've done enough, physician. The chief steward will see to your pay." Enraged by Dem-jung's words, the elf-like physician refuses any payment and storms out of the manor. Walking away, he thinks to himself, if this child had grown up in the unorthodox sects or the demonic factions, he would have become the heavenly demon. If he had been raised in the Shaolin Temple, he could have mastered the 72 elite training methods twice over. But here he is, a despised child born into such a place. He'll likely die in the countryside, young, with no path to survival, unless he finds enlightenment on his own. Decades later, Jung Manor. The Jung Manor buzzes with joy as the family gathers for dinner. Patriarch Jung Dem-jung addresses his children with pride. Ever since my late father, a disciple of the Jongnan sect's Seon Gyeomja, founded this clan, I've dedicated my life to its revival. If our clan becomes famous throughout the world, I will have inherited the ultimate technique of the Jongnan sect. How could I abandon our clan business? He smiles as he raises his glass. I am especially proud that one of my sons has followed in my father's footsteps and managed to join the Jongnan sect. The hall erupts in congratulations. To think you've become a disciple of the Jongnan sect. Truly incredible. Dem-jung gestures for everyone to raise their glasses. Let us celebrate this joyous moment. But amid the celebration, one of Dem-jung's sons notices something amiss. Father, he asks, where is Yonshin? He's not here. Dem-jung's expression hardens. I told him to stay at the training ground. It's better for him not to attend on such an occasion. He would only bring ill omens. The older son looks at his father, worry etched on his face. He knows Dem-jung still blames Yonshin for their mother's death. Meanwhile, training ground. At the training ground, Yonshin, the child once destined to die young, is immersed in his training. Sweat drips from his brow as he moves with precision. Finally he pauses and exhales deeply. I've mastered the Jung clan's movement art. He reflects on his progress. With the movement art, he can stimulate his muscles with energy and compress them, enhancing his strength. But even with this mastery, he knows his body's limits. My body can't get any stronger than this, he thinks. But will this help me live longer? Will I surpass my cursed fate? Yonshin clenches his fists, determination flickering in his eyes. If I cannot change my destiny, I will create one of my own. Our story continues at the Jung Manor, where Yonshin, the child once destined to die young, reflects on his progress. He has just mastered the Jung clan's movement art and contemplates the modifications he made to improve it. When he proudly shares his accomplishment with his older brother, his brother grows worried. Yonshin, he says, don't take this the wrong way, but it's better if you don't tell anyone about this. Surprised by his brother's reaction, Yonshin disregards the warning and eagerly shares the news with another brother, asking if he'd like to learn the improved martial art. To his shock, this brother responds angrily. What if I experience energy deviation while practicing and die? Will you take responsibility? Yonshin is shaken. Hoping for recognition, he approaches his father, Jung Daemyung, to explain the improvements he made. Instead of praise, his father reacts with fury. How dare you tamper with the clan's exclusive martial art? Are you out of your mind? Do you think you're the clan founder or something? Daemyung's harsh words cut deeply, and Yonshin reflects on his true intentions. A clan founder, someone who creates martial arts and leads a group to greatness. I never thought of myself like that. I wasn't trying to create something legendary. I just wanted to be healthy and live with everyone. As Yonshin sits with his thoughts, a commotion outside interrupts him. He sees servants rushing toward the manor's entrance. Where is everyone going? He wonders aloud, before remembering, today's the day the martial masters of the Zhongnan sect visit. The Zhongnan sect, one of the 9 great sects of the world, is renowned for its martial prowess, rivaled only by the Mount Hua sect. It is a place of legends, home to the revered sword deities. Curiosity brimming, Yonshin hopes to meet these masters. But a servant delivers a harsh reminder of his exclusion. The patriarch orders you to stay away from the guests. Is it because I caused my mother's death? Yonshin asks quietly, his disappointment palpable. The servant doesn't reply, merely apologizing before leaving. Determined, Yonshin decides to watch from afar. Even if I can't meet them, I might learn something just by observing. At the manor's entrance, the Jung household gathers in anticipation. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Who's visiting today? Could it be the Sky Sword Dragon? Maybe an elder? If someone of their caliber truly came, it'd be a great honor for our clan. Patriarch Jung Daemyung stands at the forefront, nervously awaiting his esteemed guests. Moments later, a servant shouts, "They're here! The martial masters of the Zhongnan sect have arrived!" As the visitors approach, the crowd parts. To everyone's astonishment, a figure of unparalleled grace steps forward. An elf woman, radiating an aura of immense power. Her noble features and the energy naturally emanating from her body leave the spectators in awe. Yonshin watches from the sidelines, mesmerized. A noble race. I've only read about them in books. They're said to be mysterious beings who live forever. Humans see them as deities. Patriarch Jung Daemyung quickly composes himself and steps forward. I am deeply honored that you would visit our humble clan. I am Jung Daemyung, the patriarch of Jung Manor. The elf woman, her expression kind yet commanding, replies, Thank you for the warm welcome and hospitality. I am Yeo Il-shin, an elder of the Zhongnan sect. Daemyung is visibly shaken. An elder of the Zhongnan sect, and of the noble race. I beg your forgiveness for not recognizing a deity before me. Yeo Il-shin waves off his formalities. Please, there is no need to dwell on my status. I am not here to boast. Regaining his composure, Daemyung apologizes for any perceived disrespect. You've come such a long way. I can't believe I kept the sword deities of the Zhongnan sect waiting outside. Please, allow me to escort you inside. As Daemyung leads the guests into the manor, Yeo Il-shin's gaze falls on Yonshin, who bows his head respectfully. Daemyung notices and says, That child is my third son. Yeo Il-shin smiles warmly. He has such bright eyes. He looks very smart. Yonshin's heart races at the acknowledgement. For the first time in years, he feels noticed, not as a cursed child, but as someone with potential. Jung Daemyung bowed his head slightly and apologized to Elder Yo Il-shin. My third son isn't very well-mannered. Elder Yo Il-shin raised an eyebrow in confusion. What do you mean by that? Daemyung sighed. He's a troublemaker in our family. Meanwhile, Yonshin had returned to the training grounds, his thoughts racing. After witnessing the energy and presence of the Jongnan sect's martial masters, he gained a new perspective. I've reached a plateau with the Jung clan's movement arts. What should I train in now? Reflecting on Elder Yo Il-shin, he thought, perhaps it's time to try training with swords. Inside Jung Manor. Elder Yo Il-shin and her companions admired the view from the manor's windows. This place is better than I expected, one of her subordinates remarked. Another nodded. With this much earth energy, the tyrant sword tribe would undoubtedly covet it. Elder Yo Il-shin frowned. They will come here eventually. It's best we prepare a counterattack, but doing so might cost this clan dearly. One of her men asked, Can't we destroy them before they even cross the walls? It would be ideal, she replied, her tone somber. But the 13 skies within the tyrant sword tribe are the most troublesome. They must not be underestimated. Turning to her men, she warned, Do not let your guard down. Keep your sword aura sharp. Her companions nodded in agreement. Yet, Elder Yo Il-shin couldn't shake the memory of the boy she saw earlier. That child, he clearly stood out among the rest. What a strange and intriguing presence. At the training ground, Yonshin practiced his chi energy, but something felt off. Why is my Baihui acupoint so open? He murmured. Even though I haven't meditated for a year, the energy flowing through my head has grown stronger. At this rate, I have less than 5 years before I lose consciousness. He froze as the realization hit him. If that happens, it means I have less than 5 years to live. His body trembled with fear, and a sense of dread overtook him. Yonshin quickly stood up, opened his door, and stepped outside. Looking at the sky, he thought, even though I've mastered the Jung clan's movement arts, I can't stop this? Suddenly, an ominous feeling washed over him. He turned toward the manor, sensing something was wrong. What's happening? There's an ominous energy coming from that direction. Grabbing his sword, he dashed toward the manor. The closer I get, the stronger the scent of blood becomes, he realized, his heart sinking. It's far too quiet. When he reached the gates, he noticed a trap formation surrounding the manor. Entering cautiously, he was horrified to see the bodies of the workers and servants scattered across the grounds. I didn't even notice this happening? Was it because of the trap formation? Looking at the lifeless bodies, he thought, they're all part of the Jung clan. Do the culprits possess overwhelming martial prowess? Encountering the demonic cultivators. A voice broke the silence. Wait, there's someone still alive. Yonshin turned to see a group of men dressed in black. Demonic cultivators. One of them sneered. What a fool! If you managed to stay alive, you should have stayed hidden instead of crawling out. Another remarked, Guess he's got a short life. Let's send him to the afterlife. Yonshin said nothing, his gaze burning with anger. The leader, wielding twin swords, stepped forward. I'm only killing you because I was ordered to. Don't blame me for this. As he gathered energy in his hands, ready to strike, Yonshin moved swiftly. In an instant, Yonshin grabbed the man's wrist and twisted it with precision. A sickening crack echoed as the man screamed in agony, his hand rendered useless. The remaining cultivators froze, stunned. Their leader, who had moments ago exuded dominance, was now writhing on the ground in pain, his hand completely destroyed. Yonshin stood unfazed, his cold gaze sweeping over the group. Terrified, the others drew their swords, their confidence shaken. Who are you? One of them stammered. Yonshin's voice rang out, firm and furious. "I am the third son of this clan!" As Yonshin slowly advanced toward the remaining intruders, the leader, whose hand Yonshin had destroyed, staggered to his feet, his face contorted with rage. "You bastard!" he roared, gathering energy in the palm of his hand. He attempted a sneak attack. Before he could even move, Yonshin's blade flashed, and the leader's head was severed from his body. The act was so swift that the man hadn't realized he was dead until his body collapsed lifelessly to the ground. Yonshin's gaze turned cold as he dashed toward the others, who, shocked by the sudden death of their leader, scrambled to draw their swords. They were too slow. Yonshin activated the Scripture of Origin technique, his movements precise and lethal. In an instant, he beheaded each of them, giving none a chance to retaliate. After the last one fell, Yonshin stood still, taking a deep breath. He thought to himself, "This was my first time using the delightful sword, but I think I've grasped how it works." Suddenly, a voice broke the silence from behind him. "Pretty impressive." Yonshin turned, unfazed, to see a new group of individuals approaching. These men carried themselves with an air of arrogance and danger, their presence exuding power. One of them chuckled. "Those idiots lost because they let their guard down." He looked at Yonshin with a sly smile. "Even then, I'm surprised. How can someone your age wield the delightful sword with such skill? Have you been training with it your entire life?" Yonshin's eyes narrowed. "Are you from the Blood Flame cult?" The man smirked. "The ones you just killed?" "Yes, they were from the Blood Flame cult. But us? We're from the Tyrant Sword Tribe." Yonshin's mind raced. The Tyrant Sword Tribe? And the Blood Flame cult too? His expression darkened. The 13 Skies. The most ruthless and powerful forces in Murim. Both of these factions are part of that infamous group, and they're here? Why? He asked aloud. What kind of business would two organizations from the 13 Skies have in this region? The man's smirk faltered slightly. That's none of your business, he replied curtly. Yonshin stepped closer, smiling faintly. Seeing as you're answering my questions instead of attacking me, do you know who I am? The man's confidence wavered. What? I'm asking if you're aware that my family is part of the Desolate Fortress, the most formidable branch sect in Murim. If you kill me, even you, as part of the Tyrant Sword Tribe, will face serious consequences. Isn't that right? Before the man could respond, a sudden, powerful attack exploded behind them, shaking the ground and destroying a section of the wall. A figure came crashing down, landing heavily on the ground. Yonshin's eyes widened. That man! He's from the Zhongnan sect. Above, the sound of rushing air drew Yonshin's attention. He looked up to see Elder Yo Il-shin descending gracefully from the sky, her robes tattered, her expression grim. She landed with her men, their weariness evident. Yonshin stared in shock. Elder Yo Il-shin, the deity of the sword. If even she's in such disarray, who could the enemy possibly be? Suddenly, an immense pressure bore down on him. It was so overwhelming that his body trembled involuntarily. He looked toward the direction of the destroyed wall as the enemy emerged. A man in black robes stepped forward, his blue hair flowing like a river under the moonlight. In his hand, he wielded a massive sword that radiated an ominous black energy. His piercing gaze fell on Elder Yo Il-shin and Yonshin. Yonshin's heart pounded in his chest. Who is this man? The oppressive aura emanating from him made it clear. This was no ordinary opponent. Yonshin observed the man from the side, noting the ominous energy radiating from him. The moment their eyes met, Yonshin felt his head grow light, as though the sheer intensity of the man's gaze could pierce through his very soul. One of the men from the Tyrant Sword Tribe bowed deeply before the imposing figure and addressed him reverently. Tribe leader. Yonshin's heart sank. This man. The leader of the tyrant sword tribe? He realized he was standing before the harbinger of disasters in Jianghu, a figure whose power and influence rivaled the patriarchs of the 9 great sects. But why is someone like him in a place like this? Glancing at elder Yo Il-shin and her men, Yonshin could tell they were exhausted. At this rate, we're all as good as dead. Clenching his jaw, Yonshin made a decision. If I'm going to die, let me test myself first. He gathered his chi energy, channeling it into his footwork, and dashed toward the tribe leader with deadly intent. One of the tribe leader's men noticed Yonshin's sudden movement. What is he? Before he could finish, Yonshin had already infused his chi into his sword and lunged forward. The man unsheathed his sword to block, but it was too late. Yonshin's blade pierced him from behind. The battlefield froze in shock. Elder Yo Il-shin and the tribe leader both turned to look at Yonshin, surprise etched across their faces. The others stood stunned, unable to comprehend the young warrior's audacity. Yonshin locked eyes with the tribe leader and asked calmly, "Can you kill me even if I do this?" The other members of the tyrant sword tribe unsheathed their swords, shouting, "You crazy bastard!" But the tribe leader raised a hand, stopping them. The leader stared at Yonshin, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Your spirit is better than all those here combined." The men of the tyrant sword tribe were stunned by their leader's praise. Elder Yo Il-shin, too, was taken aback. The leader's gaze lingered on Yonshin. "I'll let you live," he declared. Yonshin, unshaken, pointed his sword at the leader and replied, "You mean you can't kill me." He raised the blade, now stained with the blood of his fallen foe. "Because I'm the grandson of the former divine sword squad leader of the desolate fortress." The words hit like a thunderclap. Elder Yo Il-shin's eyes widened in shock. The divine sword squad? The elite force of the desolate fortress? And this child? He's their leader's grandson? The tribe leader's expression remained calm. The desolate fortress, created by the imperial family to counter Murim's conspiracies. It's not wise to involve myself with them. He paused, his tone softening. But that is not the reason I'm letting you live. I like you. Your temperament and spirit are exactly what a powerful martial artist in Jianghu needs. The leader continued, his voice firm. If you weren't tied to the desolate fortress, I would have taken you as my disciple. Gasps of disbelief rippled through the crowd. The tyrant sword tribe men exchanged astonished glances, unable to fathom their leader's words. Stepping forward, the tribe leader planted his sword into the ground. "I'll give you 1 day," he said, his voice cold. "Leave this place." His gaze shifted to Elder Yo Il-shin. "And I forbid any other sects or clans from stepping foot on this land." Turning to leave, the tribe leader stopped briefly, looking over his shoulder at Yonshin. "One last thing. I'll always be open to a duel with you. Come find me when you're ready for revenge." With that, he and his men departed, their ominous presence lingering in the air. Yonshin remained silent, watching them leave. His anger simmered beneath his calm exterior. "I'm no match for him now," he thought, clenching his fist tightly around his sword. "But one day—" He stood there, quiet yet resolute, as the realization sank in. His journey had only just begun. Moments later, Yonshin entered the main hall of the Jung Manor and found his father, Jung Demyong, lying on the ground, covered in blood and taking his last breaths. Yonshin knelt beside him and softly said, "Father, it's me, Yonshin." Jung Demyong weakly turned his head, gripping Yonshin's hand with trembling fingers. His voice quivered. "Why are you so strong? How did you—" Yonshin, his eyes filled with both pity and sorrow, replied, "This is the Jung clan movement art. I created and mastered it." Jung Demyong's eyes widened in disbelief. "You created it?" Memories of their past conversations resurfaced in his fading consciousness, when Yonshin had first told him about refining the clan's cultivation technique. Instead of praise, he had scolded his son, shouting, "How dare you tamper with the clan's exclusive martial arts? Do you think you're the clan founder?" Realizing his mistake, Young Demyung whispered, "Could it be from back then?" Yonshin nodded solemnly. Tears filled Young Demyung's eyes as he said, "I see. The Jung clan movement art. It's the sacred art of our clan, and my son was the one who created it." His voice cracked with regret. "How ignorant I was. So foolish. Yet my third son created the sacred art of the Jung clan." Looking into Yonshin's eyes with newfound pride, Young Daemyung said with his last breath, "You have the qualities of a founder. You're my son." With those words, Young Daemyung exhaled his final breath. Yonshin felt a deep pang in his chest, his emotions on the verge of overwhelming him. Beside him, his older brother broke into tears, mourning their father. But Yonshin quickly composed himself. This was not the time to succumb to grief. Standing tall, he turned to the chief steward, who was holding his niece, Haye-ah. "How is she?" Yonshin asked. The chief steward replied gravely, "She's safe, young master. Her acupoints were blocked, which knocked her unconscious. She was hidden to protect her from the killers." Yonshin looked at his brother, whose face was stained with tears. "Raise Hye-ah in the Zhongnan sect," Yonshin instructed. "She has an exceptional affinity with the 5 elements. They will accept her." His brother, stunned by the directive, stammered, What about you?" Without hesitation, Yonshin replied, "I'll look after myself." At that moment, Elder Yeo Il-shin called out to Yonshin, asking him to step outside. Once there, Yonshin inquired, "Are you leaving now, Elder?" "Yes," she replied, her tone serious. "Now that the Tyrant Sword Tribe leader has gotten involved, I must report this to the Zhongnan sect immediately." She paused, studying Yonshin's face. "What about you? Are you going to the desolate fortress where your mother's family resides?" Yonshin's eyes were filled with both pain and despair as he answered, "Yes, I don't have anywhere else where I can go to grow stronger." Elder Yeo Il-shin considered his words before responding. "Why don't you come back with me to Zhongnan Mountain? I would strongly recommend it." Yonshin was taken aback. To receive such an offer from an elder of a great sect. "I'm truly honored." Elder Yeo Il-shin smiled faintly. "It's more than an offer. I intend to recommend that you become the sect leader's disciple." The announcement left both Yonshin and her men speechless. "The sect leader's disciple?" Yonshin repeated in disbelief. "Yes," she confirmed. "It would be possible if it's you." Yonshin's mind raced. The direct disciple of the Zhongnan sect leader. He realized the gravity of the opportunity. Becoming the sect leader's disciple would grant me access to the absolute sacred art. More than that, the leader is one of the top martial masters in the world, a member of the 10 great swordsmen. However, Yonshin couldn't accept the offer. With a deep bow, he respectfully said, "Elder Yeo Il-shin, I will never forget the great kindness you have shown me. However, I must apologize. I cannot accept your offer." Elder Yeo Il-shin's men were visibly taken aback by Yeonshin's response. But the elder merely smiled, a mix of admiration and understanding in her expression. "Don't worry about it," she replied. "I simply wished for someone as talented as you to join us. Perhaps that's what the Tyrant Sword Tribe leader saw in you as well." Yonshin bowed again. "I am truly sorry, Elder. Please forgive me." Elder Yeo Il-shin nodded. "It's fine. The doors of the Zhongnan sect will always be open for you. Please remember that." Yonshin hesitated, a question weighing on his mind. Gathering his courage, he asked, "Elder Yeo Il-shin, I have a question for you. What is it? She asked curiously. I've heard that you are one of the older members of the noble races. Do you know the method to obtain the fruit of the world tree? Elder Yeo Il-shin's eyes widened at the unexpected question. The fruit of the world tree? Are you thinking of trying to acquire it? Yonshin nodded, explaining his thoughts. The fruit of the world tree is said to be protected by the leader of the desolate fortress, someone even the emperor acknowledges as a peer. It's rumored to grant eternal life and youth to those who consume it, a treasure of the heavens. If I could obtain it, I might extend my short lifespan. Elder Yeo Il-shin looked at him with concern. I haven't even lived half my own lifespan, so I have no authority over the world tree. All I know is that the leader of the desolate fortress can grant it to others. Yonshin clenched his fists. In that case, I must go to the desolate fortress. Elder Yeo Il-shin's tone turned serious. It won't be easy to acquire it. The fruit of the world tree is a sacred treasure, even for us noble races. Yonshin's determination was unwavering. I don't have any other options. If it's the only way, then I must strive to become the Divine Sword Squad leader and achieve great feats. Seeing the fire in his eyes, Elder Yeo Il-shin offered him an encouraging smile. I'll cheer you on from afar. For now, I must take my leave and report these events to my sect. Before departing, she turned to her men. Cliff Swordsman, Neutral Spirit Fist, assist with cleaning up this place. Her men nodded, and Elder Yeo Il-shin left with a respectful farewell. Yonshin stood silently, watching her disappear into the distance, before bowing deeply to show his respect. Rebuilding and farewells. With the help of Cliff Swordsman and Neutral Spirit Fist, Yonshin respectfully buried the fallen members of the Jung clan. As the last grave was completed, he turned to them and said, "Thank you for your help." Cliff Swordsman shook his head. "No thanks are needed. This was your clan, and we share responsibility for what happened. This is the least we can do." Neutral Spirit Fist nodded in agreement. "We regret the role we played in this tragedy." As they spoke, Yonshin's brother approached, his face filled with guilt. "Yonshin," he began, his voice faltering, "an apology won't make up for everything that has happened to you in this clan. But when we meet again, I'll do my best to be the older brother you deserve. I hope that you'll survive too." Yonshin studied his brother for a moment before replying. "While you'll be learning the Jongnan sect's martial arts at a slightly later age, you are not without potential. However," he added, his tone firm, "you must train as if your life depends on it." His brother nodded solemnly. "I will." Yonshin then turned to his nephew and said firmly, "Protect Hia. She's your responsibility now." Turning to the chief steward, Yonshin asked, "What about you? Where will you go?" The chief steward looked at Yonshin with a mix of pride and sorrow. "There are smaller branches of the Jung clan scattered across Nanyang. As long as the bloodline of the Jung clan survives, I'll oversee the remaining assets." Yonshin nodded thoughtfully. "As you know, I'm heading to the desolate fortress. I hope we can meet from time to time," he said, thinking to himself, "Since the chief steward knows martial arts, he'll be a valuable ally." The chief steward gave a faint smile and nodded. "Of course, young master Yonshin." Looking back one last time at his family and the remnants of his clan, Yonshin said, "I hope you all live a comfortable life. Please take care of yourselves." Without waiting for a response, he turned and began his journey toward his destiny. The chief steward watched Yonshin's retreating figure, his heart heavy with emotion. He hopes I'll live a comfortable life? No one from the Jung clan has ever said that to me before. Perhaps the third son truly is different. Arrival at the desolate fortress. Days later, Yonshin arrived at Xiangyang, home to the legendary desolate fortress. Hungry from his travels, he stepped into a bustling restaurant to grab a meal. As he ate, he overheard a lively conversation among the patrons. "The desolate fortress is truly incredible," one man said. "People from all over the Central Plains come here with big dreams. The boss here has hit the jackpot. He's already out of liquor." "It's been chaos lately," another added. "All these martial artists showing up for the entrance tests are constantly drunk." Yonshin furrowed his brow. "An entrance test? I wasn't aware of this." As he pondered, a young man approached him. "Are you here to take the entrance test too?" the stranger asked with a friendly smile. Yonshin looked at him, slightly wary. "What about you?" he replied. The man scratched the back of his head, a bit embarrassed. "I haven't introduced myself, have I? My name is Heian Wonchang. I came from Shangxi, quite far from here," he said enthusiastically. Yonshin nodded and replied, "I'm Jung Yonshin, from Shinya County." Heian Wonchang's eyes lit up. "Ah, so you're from nearby. Your journey must have been easy then," he remarked. Yonshin smirked slightly, recalling the trials of his journey. "Well, my journey was pretty easy," he said nonchalantly, though he thought about the bandits he had fought and the nights spent in the forest. Leaning in conspiratorially, Heian Wonchang whispered, "How about we become friends and share information about the test?" Yonshin raised an eyebrow, clearly unaware of what Heian Wonchang meant. "What do you mean there's a test?" he asked, confused. Heian Wonchang looked at him in shock. "You didn't know? It's called the Desolate Fortress Trial." He leaned back, explaining, "The Desolate Fortress isn't like other martial arts groups. Just like those who aspire to become government officials must master both martial arts and literature, there's a rigorous test just to join." Hearing this, Yonshin realized the true reason so many people had gathered in Xiangyang. "So that's why this place is so crowded," he muttered. Heian Wonchang nodded vigorously. "Exactly. It doesn't matter if you have strong foundations or none at all. Everyone must pass the trial to earn a place here." Heian Wonchang leaned in enthusiastically as he explained, "The moment you join the Desolate Fortress, countless opportunities and teachings are provided to you. It's no wonder that martial artists from all over are swarming here. Some people spend their entire lives mastering various martial arts just to pass the trial." Yonshin absorbed the information silently, his thoughts swirling. "The Desolate Fortress," he mused, "the strongest martial group in the world. A place where martial arts thrive, causing every warrior's heart to race. They say if you want to take on the world with just one weapon, you come to the Desolate Fortress." He recalled rumors he'd heard before. The imperial family that rules over the Central Plains ensures that all elixirs, techniques, and advanced martial arts gathered from across the land are sent to the Desolate Fortress. It's a repository of unimaginable power. Heian Wonchang continued, his voice tinged with pride. "Some say the great sects with their long traditions are better, but that's nonsense. How could martial groups formed by mere commoners ever hope to rival the Desolate Fortress? If that were true, they'd have already created an empire and crowned themselves emperors." Yonshin nodded silently, agreeing with the sentiment. Heian Wonchang added, "Almost nobody passes the Desolate Fortress trial on their first attempt. It's said that only 1 in 1,000 succeed. Most of those who pass are next-generation leaders of reputable martial clans, people already gaining fame in the martial world." He paused, smiling at Yonshin. "That's why I came here. What about you? How about we take the trial together tomorrow?" Without hesitation, Yonshin replied, "Sure." Heian Wonchang blinked in surprise. "You're so easygoing. I knew you'd be fine." Patting Yonshin on the back, he said, "The trial might be confusing for you on your first try, but don't worry. Just stick with me. I might not look like it, but I... blah blah." Yonshin, however, was lost in his own thoughts, paying little attention to Heian Wonchang's chatter. "I'm glad I can join as long as I pass the test," he thought to himself. "I didn't want to ask my mother's family for help. I don't even know where they live or what they look like. This is my best chance. The next day, at the desolate fortress trial gates. Yonshin stood before the imposing gates of the desolate fortress, a massive structure that loomed over the landscape like a titan. The air was thick with tension as hundreds of hopeful challengers gathered, all waiting to take the trial. He looked up at the fortress, its towering walls and intricate designs exuding an aura of power and mystery. So this is the desolate fortress, he thought, his heart pounding. Upon entering the desolate fortress trial, Yonshin was handed a wooden plaque engraved with the number 13. Heian Wonchang noticed it and commented, 13, an interesting number. Yonshin glanced around, observing the gathering of martial artists, each exuding varying levels of skill and determination. Among them, 2 disciples clad in pristine white robes stood out, emanating an air of authority and discipline. Heian Wonchang began explaining the trial's structure to Yonshin. The first test is straightforward. Present your plaque to the exam supervisor. If he accepts it, you pass. However, if he instructs you to return it to the reception, you fail. He continued, the second test is a tournament, a test of skill and combat ability. Yonshin, intrigued, asked, is there a third test as well? Heian Wonchang nodded affirmatively. Yes, the third test is an interview with the Lord of the Desolate Fortress. Surprised, Yonshin asked, the Lord himself? Yes, Heian Wonchang replied. Many martial artists journey to Yangyang solely for the chance to meet him. A conversation with such an unparalleled master is an opportunity to gain profound insights, perhaps even enlightenment. Yonshin's mind raced with possibilities. If I succeed in these trials, I might finally uncover the secrets of the world tree fruit from the fortress master. The sound of the exam supervisor's voice cut through the air, announcing, the first test will assess swift sword arts. Each participant must demonstrate their fastest sword technique. I will observe and judge. Before anyone else could react, Heian Wonchang stepped forward, raising his hand. I'll go first. Though his voice was resolute, his nervousness was palpable. Yonshin watched closely as Heian prepared himself. He possesses remarkable discipline and a strong spirit. His skill is far above some of the vagabonds I encountered on my journey here. Taking a deep breath, Heian Wonchang unsheathed his sword and performed a swift, precise strike. The crowd collectively gasped, mesmerized by his polished execution. That man's swordsmanship feels extraordinary, someone in the crowd whispered. I could barely catch the movement, another murmured. The examiner, however, remained composed, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded and said, Not bad. Hand over your plaque. Relieved, Heian Wonchang's face brightened, as he thanked the examiner profusely before stepping down. As he passed Yonshin, he offered an encouraging smile and wished him luck. When Yeonshin's name was called, murmurs rippled through the crowd. He looks so young, one observer remarked. Perhaps he's here from another province, hoping to demonstrate his skills before a master, another speculated. Even receiving a single piece of advice here is invaluable. Yonshin walked onto the stage with quiet confidence, bowing respectfully to the examiner. The examiner returned the gesture and said, You may begin. Without hesitation, Yonshin unsheathed his sword and delivered a strike so fast that even the keenest observers failed to follow it. Gasps of astonishment echoed through the crowd. When did he even swing his sword? A bewildered voice asked. The examiner's normally stoic demeanor faltered as he exclaimed, The future of the desolate fortress stands before us. The crowd erupted into hushed admiration, including many of the other participants. The examiner collected Yonshin's plaque, glanced at the engraved number and said, 13. Proceed to the next stage. Bowing once more, Yonshin stepped off the stage and made his way toward the next examination hall. Eyes followed him with awe and admiration. Heian Wonchang hurried after him, his curiosity getting the better of him. Are you perhaps the son of a prominent martial family? He asked. Yonshin turned to him with a calm expression. Does that make a difference? In the desolate fortress, all that matters are one's martial arts talent, dedication, and effort. Taken aback by Yonshin's maturity, Heian Wanchang asked, "Do you truly intend to pass all the trials?" Yonshin smiled faintly. "Isn't that why we're all here? Not just me, but you as well." Heian Wanchang, momentarily stunned, nodded. "You're absolutely right," he said, his voice laced with newfound determination. Bowing slightly, he thanked Yonshin and walked away, with renewed resolve in his eyes. As Yonshin watched him leave, he thought to himself, "I hope that kind and talkative Wanchang succeeds in the next trial as well." Returning to his room later that evening, Yonshin began practicing his chi energy, mentally preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. As Yonshin practiced, his body was drenched in sweat. His thoughts drifted to the upcoming second exam, a tournament where participants would compete using their martial arts skills. With only 3 weeks remaining, Yonshin resolved to hone his techniques. He grabbed his sword and focused on rigorous training, mastering the Jung clan's movement art, rapid sword arts, and the scripture of origin, an amplified chi movement technique. 3 weeks passed swiftly, and the day of the second exam arrived. A white-robed martial artist gathered the examinees and instructed them, "Until your name is called, please wait here." The room filled with those who had passed the first exam, their anticipation palpable. After ensuring everyone was assembled, the white-robed martial artist entered the hall where the second exam would take place. Outside, the crowd buzzed with nervous energy, their attention drawn to a guard stationed at the entrance. One participant muttered, "This makes me feel discouraged." Another added, "I heard the white martial arts robes signify an elementary-level martial artist. How can his energy be so overwhelming?" A third replied knowingly, "Isn't it obvious? Even wearing white means your future is guaranteed to be promising." Yonshin listened quietly, his curiosity piqued. Before he could dwell on the conversation, a familiar voice called out. Heian Wanchang approached him with a cheerful grin. "Yonshin, you've gotten taller in these 3 weeks." Yonshin chuckled. "And you look better too." Wanchang smiled proudly. "I did accomplish a thing or two," he said. His expression then turned serious. "Remember, in this exam, winning isn't the most important thing. Even winning just one match could catch the attention of a desolate fortress master. That's the real goal." Wanchang's eyes grew misty as he recalled past experiences. "But that's the hardest part," he added somberly. Curious, Yonshin asked, "Does that mean you can win a match and still fail?" Clenching his teeth in frustration, Wanchang nodded. "The exam supervisors will have much higher standards today." "Why?" Yonshin pressed. Wanchang leaned in and whispered, "Because the White Qilin is competing in today's trials." Yonshin's expression shifted to one of surprise. "The White Qilin? From the Namgung family?" Wanchang nodded. "Yes. He wiped out a notorious group of bandits before he turned 15. He beheaded the swordmaster of the unorthodox faction, the Shrouded Assassin. There are even rumors he defeated all the rising stars of the 8 great families' Dragon and Phoenix tournament at just 18. Still perplexed, Yonshin asked, "If he's already a young master from the Namgung family, why would he need to join the desolate fortress?" Wanchang leaned closer and whispered, "He's the child of a concubine. That means he can never become the family patriarch. But if he becomes the desolate fortress lord's captain, his rank would rival that of a patriarch of the 8 great families, or even surpass it. The desolate fortress maintains order in the Jianghu across the Central Plains, granting unmatched influence." Before Yonshin could ask more, the guard at the door called out, "Nanyang, Henan Province, Shinya County's Zhong Yonshin, step forward." Wanchang looked at Yonshin in surprise. As Yonshin stepped forward, he turned to Wanchang and said, "I hope to see you again, here, in the desolate fortress." Wanchang nodded with a smile. "Yes, we will meet again." Yonshin entered the examination hall and stepped into the ring. The audience, filled with examiners and martial artists, watched intently. His opponent was a white-haired old man with a roguish demeanor. The man unsheathed his sword and smirked at Yonshin, who remained unfazed. The referee raised his hand and announced, "Begin!" As the match started, the old man burst into laughter, startling Yonshin. What is wrong with him? He wondered. The old man's voice boomed across the ring. You don't even know your final destination, such despair. You must be the moth struggling against the flame. Who am I, you ask? Before he could finish his sentence, Yonshin lunged forward with blinding speed. He grabbed his opponent's sword and delivered a devastating punch to the man's face, sending him flying across the ring. The old man crashed to the ground, unconscious, leaving the crowd in stunned silence. After the guards carried the unconscious old man away, the crowd continued to stare at Yonshin in astonishment. Suddenly, a man stepped forward, smiling confidently. He called out, "May I begin now?" Yonshin turned to look at him. His curiosity piqued as he tried to discern the man's identity. As the newcomer stepped onto the stage, two individuals in the crowd wearing blue robes exchanged knowing smiles. Finally, one said, "I wonder who'll end up recruiting him. The squad leaders are going to fight over him for sure." The other nodded. "He seems stronger than us. I wouldn't expect any less from a Namgung." Yonshin's eyes widened slightly as he overheard the name Namgung. He thought back and realized, that must be the White Kilin, Namgung Hwashin. The murmurs in the crowd intensified. Are we about to witness the boundless heaven technique from Namgung today? Someone speculated. Yonshin studied Hwashin closely. He looks about 5 years older than me, he observed. While I'm physically more fit, thanks to my family's martial techniques, he surpasses me in other areas. But it doesn't feel like a gap I can't overcome. Hwashin bowed respectfully and introduced himself. I am Namgung Hwashin of the Namgung clan. I have trained primarily in the boundless heaven technique and the infinite steps. It's an honor to meet you. Yonshin returned the gesture, introducing himself. I am Yonshin of the Jung clan, trained in the Jung clan movement art. Hwashin's eyes narrowed slightly as he noticed something. Are you not planning to use your sword? He asked. Realizing his oversight, Yonshin calmly drew his sword and assumed an attack stance. Hwashin smiled, his confidence unwavering, and infused his sword with chi, its energy glowing faintly. Yonshin focused his mind. The essence of my technique is unpredictability, a surprise attack amidst an erratic rhythm. If it works, I can force him to drop his guard. The crowd buzzed with excitement as the two combatants prepared themselves. The referee raised his hand and announced, "Begin!" Yonshin didn't waste a second. He launched forward with lightning speed, his sword flashing toward Hwashin. The movement was so swift and precise that Hwashin's sword shattered into pieces before anyone could react. The crowd gasped, stunned by the suddenness of Yonshin's strike. Confused murmurs spread among the onlookers. Did Namgung Hwashin win? Someone asked. The White Kilin, another marveled. What an incredible sword technique! Amid the crowd, the two men in blue robes, who had seen Yonshin's attack clearly, exchanged shocked glances. Hwashin stared at his broken sword in disbelief before turning to Yonshin. I lost, he admitted quietly. Yonshin was momentarily stunned. What does he mean? He wondered. The crowd, equally bewildered, murmured among themselves. What does he mean? He lost. The two men in blue robes, however, seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. One whispered, Jung Yonshin, such a terrifyingly skilled swordsman. And he's at least 5 years younger than Hwashin, the other added. It's frightening to think he hasn't even used true energy with his techniques yet. Both men looked at Yonshin with a mix of awe and apprehension. A hidden prodigy in Henan, one muttered. What kind of monster will he grow into in the future? The crowd erupted into applause, unaware of the weight of what they had just witnessed. Yonshin stood calmly amidst the chaos, his mind already focused on the trials yet to come. The referee approached Yonshin and asked, "Is your name Jung Yonshin?" Yonshin nodded in affirmation. After confirming his identity, the referee pointed toward a gate and said, "Head north from here. There is another garden. Stand by there." Yonshin nodded respectfully and began making his way toward the garden. Before leaving, he turned to Namgung Hwashin, bowed slightly and said, "It would be an honor to duel with you again someday." Hwashin smiled and replied, "That's exactly what I wanted to say. I'll look forward to it." Encouraged by Hwashin's response, Yonshin exited the area and followed the path the referee had indicated. As he entered the next section, the participants who had passed the second exam before him watched him curiously. "Someone as young as him passed?" one murmured in disbelief. "I thought Namgung Hwashin would have gotten through first," another commented. Yonshin paused momentarily and reflected on his fight with Hwashin. "I knew I had no chance of winning if the duel dragged on. That's why I used the most extreme form of the delightful sword technique I had mastered the moment the match began. But because Namgung Hwashin had infused his sword with true energy, it broke." He frowned slightly. "It was reckless of me to use the delightful sword in such a manner. I see that as a failure on my part. Yet, Hwashin admitted defeat instead. Is that the nobility of a renowned family?" As Yonshin continued walking, he overheard a conversation among the guards in blue robes. "Do you think Yonshin can even use true energy with his techniques yet?" one whispered. "Impossible," another replied. "The Jung clan is just a third-rate branch clan from Shinya County. If there were someone in the family who knew how to wield such a skill, Yonshin would have already learned it. But he might figure it out eventually." Hearing this, Yonshin's thoughts turned to Hwashin's earlier performance. So that's how true energy should be used. He replayed the duel in his mind, realizing that the moment he witnessed Hwashin's technique, something had clicked. He picked up his broken sword and began channeling his chi into it. It's not just about pouring energy into the sword, he thought. True energy should serve as a medium that unites the wielder with the sword itself. Focusing intensely, he applied his newfound understanding. Gradually, his sword began to emit a powerful aura, radiating energy that astonished those nearby. "What?" someone exclaimed. "He's using sword resonation." "That's impossible!" another cried. "He's far too young to master such a technique." Yonshin closed his eyes, allowing himself to feel the connection between his sword and his body. A profound realization washed over him, a sensation of complete unity. This must be body-sword unification, he thought, gripping his sword tightly. The energy flowed effortlessly, as if the sword had become an extension of his very being. The onlookers stared in disbelief, their expressions shifting between awe and fear. Yonshin, undistracted by their reactions, stood still, letting the power of the technique settle within him. For the first time, he truly understood the boundless potential of merging body and sword as one.